drilling it in a slightly different place, slightly. And who knows whether we'd be able to get 1,000 gallons per minute.
You're absolutely right.
There is no guarantee.
Right. So what we're gonna be drilling,
We're gonna
So
get
what
as
you're
much as
saying-
we can.
but the hope is 1,000 gallons per minute.
That's right. The design will be for 1,000. That's what we had, or thought we had. That's what we got on number 3. And there's no reason to expect that we shouldn't expect it, but you never know. You can't see 700, 800, 1,000 feet down in the ground.
Right.
Well,
So you don't know for a fact that you're gonna get exactly the same thing
What
that
you're
you got before.
well, Scott and I are drilling
Okay.
another one that's not gonna make what we expected to.
Anyway, does anybody have any more questions? Mr. Sullivan? Steve,
Scott.
would you come forward?
Yes, sir.
I think there's 3 seats here, you'll be able to take out. Steve's well was on, his workover rig has been on this well. He drilled the original well, I think. No,
No.
No.
Lane equipment.
Lane Bowler?
Drilled well 1 and 2,
Right.
and Alsay drilled well 3.
Ah, all right. But you've worked on it twice.
Yes, sir. Got
You
all
set the
records.
liner the first time, and you've been on it the second time.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you found, and what you think our best options are.
We pulled the pump out of the well and inspected the well with a camera survey and saw that the casings were deteriorated. And we went in there and wire brushed the well and jetted the fill. And we did some cleaning on the well, and a mutual decision was made with the district here. Before we put the liner in the well, we did a log on the well to inspect the casing, the thickness of the casing, and the casing that showed it was deteriorated. And so we wanted to make sure before we spent the money in putting a temporary liner in the well, was the well going to be able to have any life on it. And so we brought out our own temporary casing and put it inside the well, and we produced the well at a high yield, and the well started producing a lot of sand, and we pulled the casing back out, and there's a hole in the casing, in the upper casing where it was cemented. I feel comfortable saying in the shallowest formation called the Chico Formation, and it's got the lowest pH of all the formations in Montgomery County. Your Chico is the shallowest, your Evangeline is the middle, and the Jasper has 2 formations. You got the upper and the lower Jasper, and the lower Jasper is the 3rd formation that historically people will produce wells out of. The lower Jasper is high in salinity, and so you have to be careful. It's a risk of making a well there. But anyway, the district's well, just for knowledge, is a blend of the Evangeline and the upper Jasper, not all of it, but just a part of it. And so you've been producing out of these 2 zones. And so with that being said, the well now has completely filled up with sand to the top of the liner in the well. It's just, it's gone. And so we took a look at, situation here and trying to figure out how could our company help y'all be able to achieve drilling a well in the time frame that you need and get it in June. And we do have a rig available, and what we would propose is if the district were to hire us to drill the well, we could meet your time frame and be completed by June. We would recommend to go with a 20x14 down into the lower Jasper. Don't go with Evangeline. There's not that much cost difference to go between the 18x12 and the 20x14. There's probably about somewhere around $70,000 cost difference to upsize the casing. If the water levels ever dropped in the area to the point where you'd need to put your pump inside the liner where your screens are. Going with the 20/14 would allow you to have the ability to put 1,000 gallon a minute or larger pump down inside there. An 18/12, you have to go with small diameter bowls and multiple stages, and it gets really complicated to try to get 1,000 gallons a minute out of a 12-inch liner. And so we think it would be money well spent, knowing the age of well one, to consider going with the 20/14 to be able to have a well that would, in my opinion, I think we could drill a well and complete a well that could not only produce 1,000 gallons a minute out of a 20/14, I think that well could probably produce around 1,300 to 1,500 gallons a minute. You could start off at 1,000 gallons a minute, and down the road, the district could plan to upsize the electrical, put a larger motor in, and lower your pump in the well to get the ability to pump more water out of that well if the district chose to do that. And, you know, it's always good, in my opinion, if you, on water wells, I'm not trying to sell anything, but you don't want to restrict yourself to the point that if you needed to do something in the future, it's a big cost burden to overcome that. And if you can design something for a little bit more, you know, $70,000 on the difference between, you know, when you get in over $1 million on a water well, I know it's a lot of money, but it allows you to have a lot longer life for the district. Y'all would be planning for the next 50 years for your district to be able to do that. And that's I just think would be the prudent thing to do. The other thing is, most of the districts in the city of Conroe and everybody around y'all that has drilled 1,000 gallon a minute or larger wells, they've gone to the 20/14 and they've gone to the 1/2-inch wall casing. These older wells were drilled with 3/8 wall casing. Going with the 1/2-inch wall casing, it allows more corrosion allowance, which extends the life of the well. And so those are some things that are commonly practiced in the industry, and best practices with anybody doing engineering would typically today go with the 1/2-inch wall casing. And if you go with the 1/2-inch wall casing, if you go with an 18/12, you're going to have an 11-inch ID instead of, say, 12, like a 11 and a half ID. And so if you go to a 14 1/2-inch wall, it gives you a 13-inch ID. It just allows you to, like I said, not to repeat myself, but to be able to lower your pump and do some really good things in your well. If you have to reline your well down the road like you did on well 2, you can go with a 10-inch liner inside your 14-inch casing, or an 8-inch well you'd have to go with an 8-inch. And with the 10-inch liner, you could stop your liner about 30 to 40 feet above your top screen and still be able to lower your feet and pumping that 100 feet. You'd have about 70 to 80 feet to work with in that 14-inch casing.
So what you're saying is that a 20/14 versus an 18/12 provides you that much more flexibility
Yes, sir.
and capacity. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely gonna give you more
Do
capacity.
you think $70,000 is a fair price to go between the two?
Sounds like about right, yeah, I mean, you're buying the steel.
I'm just
The steel's
asking.
the big- No, the steel's your biggest cost there. You have some some drilling, extra drilling costs, but the steel is the biggest cost you got putting down in the hole there. But
Yeah.
again, from a long-term standpoint,
Further in our conversations that we had prior, which was at the meeting out there at his place, and then later on,
Friday.
you offered also to provide the plugging
At no expense.
and the, what else was it?
The engineering.
And the walkthrough to get the permits and all.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
To go to Lone Star and
Yeah,
and I want to make sure this is open and transparent here. I'm not offering that to compete against.
I know you're not,
engineering.
I'm aware of that, but that's part of the number that you quoted, which is, I don't know how good it is, but you'd have to put it in paper for us to go.
I actually I have a single copy. I was running late getting to the district, Richard, if you wanted to make a copy of that. But we had, I've got a PE on staff. And there's a lot of projects that we have to do that require us to have a PE. And when I heard the story about y'all's financial situation, about everything y'all are having to deal with, and wanted to know what I could do to help, you know, you explained to me on Friday all the different things that the district is gonna be dealing with here moving forward.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's not something, I don't wanna make a practice of this. We did a job recently, the city of Conroe came to us, they lost well 4 right next to Feeder Supply on Old Main Street. And it went down, and they had to have that well drilled extremely fast. And they wanted to know, was there anything that we could do? And we told them, well, we have a PE on staff. And, you know, again, we're not wanting to be in the engineering business, but if it is an absolute dire straits emergency situation, we have the ability to get the letter written, to get the approval at Lone
And
Star.
I don't think Bly or any other engineering firm would find fault with that. I mean, so many companies have
And so-
engineers on staff, period.
They asked
But,
us at the city what we could do, and we were honest and said, well, we have a PE on staff. And
But all of that's included in this letter?
it is.
I have a
Whether
question.
it gets that out here.
We're talking about all these numbers, a 16 by 10, an 18 by 12, and a 20 by 14. What do those numbers mean? What is it?
That's the diameter of the pipe. The
14 inches?
No, the 16 is the upper pipe that cements down to where your sand is that you're gonna get your water out of. And any well you drill out here is gonna be what's called a gravel packed well, where you're gonna drill a bigger hole and you're gonna put gravel on the outside of your screen. Your upper pipe, let's start on the smallest one, would be a 16, and then you have a 10-inch. There's probably a picture
That's a
up there.
picture of the water
Yeah.
well right there.
This is hypothetically right here, this would be either the 16 or the 18 or the 20.
Okay.
This would be the 10, the 12, or the 14 that's gonna go out the bottom. And
I
then
know what it is.
the drill bit that goes out the bottom here, it's on a piece like this, and the arms, when you turn the mud pump on, they flare out and they turn like this. So they drill a bigger hole underneath your casing here.
Called underringing.
Underring, and it's kind of like a belled hole in foundations, if you understand, the old belled trucks that
Yeah.
used to do that.
Yeah.
So all we're talking about, currently what you have now is a 16 upper casing and a 10-inch. That was the trend that they did years ago for these type of wells.
So you're talking about making the outer a 20 and this one a
A
14.
That is the most common for a 1,000-gallon minute. Well, 18 by 12 is definitely common, but there's more people that are drilling, the public entities that are drilling the 20 by 14 because they want to have the ability to put their pump inside this piece of pipe. If the water table drops such, you're not restricted where you can't, if you got to where you had to put the pump in the liner and you couldn't do it, you're gonna have to rebuild another well.
Where's the pump in this situation?
This pump right now is gonna be, I think Mike was talking earlier, Mike Sullivan was proposing around 550.
550 feet
Feet.
below surface.
Yes, or below surface, and your static water level, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere around close to 300 or 300.
Should be 300.
So it's under the static water level. It was at 500, what they're proposing to go in is with 550. And 550 would allow you to still use the same size pipe and shafting and everything in your existing motor. And you've got controls, you've got a new soft start that Richard was telling me that y'all put in recently. And so you wanna try to get some value out of what you currently have and have the ability down the road that you could upsize later. You don't have to do that today.
What is your time frame?
Our time frame would be if the board gave approval, we could start the process to get the, what we had talked about on Friday potentially would be is the district could remove the trees where we're not having to do it.
We can't,
Y'all can't?
no.
No.
We can't do anything outside the boundary of that. I ran into a problem yesterday when I proposed it, and they will not help the mud do a damn thing.
So we need to pick a spot
Yes, sir.
that we don't have to remove the trees.
Who?
No, we are gonna have to, what he's talking about, So if we're set up inside our boundary, we still have to remove those trees.
Oh, inside, we can do whatever we please,
Right, and
not outside.
now I do believe if the groundwater district, in order to get a quick permit on a replacement well, you have to be within 50 feet of your existing well. That's their rules. If you get outside the bounds, then it's gotta go to the board. And we've drilled quite a few wells in Montgomery County and other areas. We re-drilled a well recently for their company a few years ago at the city of Willis in the Pin Oak subdivision, and we were 35 feet from the existing well. And we were able to achieve drilling the new well, and we actually kept that existing well in service until they drilled a deeper well. This well, they wanted to keep it, and so we were able to cement that off, but we had to turn the well off. It was a little different situation, but I'm saying our company's got a lot of experience in being able to drill a new well next to an existing well, whether it's good or bad. And so.
And you're saying that you have to keep it within 50 feet?
That's what Lone Star's rules are. You have to stay within 50 feet, and you can get, the general manager can issue the permit without having to go to the board.
They don't care about communication.
That's their rules.
Communications will not be an issue.
You don't think?
We've drilled wells since close to
Yeah.
35. No, because the reason communications is not an issue just by drilling close to each other is because when you put your casing in, one of the requirements that the engineer has to certify is that you have 3 inches of cement on the outside. The well driller
That's on the
has,
surface pipe.
that's all the way on the surface pipe.
Yeah.
Okay, that gets you through all those other layers of.
The rest of it is gravel pack.
Down below is the gravel pack,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's where the gravel pack captures the water coming out of the
And so
sand lip.
you're saying that alleviates any kind of communication?
Correct.
Even though you may have it, that should take care of it.
Yes. Oh, I mean, you're obviously going through the upper layers.
That's exactly what my
And
point
so
is.
you have-
All I'm trying to,
What
what
you're
I'm
doing is
trying to
plugging.
say is, we have an unconsolidated sand that has turned loose on us, probably for whatever reason. And all I'm trying to do is avoid having that same thing happen if we drill one within 50 feet.
You should not have a problem with a properly constructed well.
Now, is the Lone Star Groundwater Board the only one you have to go to if it's more than 50 feet?
You know, they're the only
When you-
one.
Pardon? They're the only one?
In other words, if we go outside 50 feet, we still have to stay within their wheelhouse, but it has to go to the main board. It takes it out of the control of the general manager,
I
and she can do
understand, I
that.
understand.
It goes before the board, and then the board has to decide whether they will or won't allow you to go further, so.
Okay.
But in order to meet the time frame in June,
There's not a board meeting between, that we could go to, so it becomes a moot point,
it
what you're
becomes a
saying.
moot point.
Yeah.
I think we could pick a spot with your general manager here to drill the well
Okay,
and move on with it. The other thing that we talked about, Richard has a relationship with Green Utility that can do the piping, where they can just bill the district direct. You
yeah,
know, you don't declare an
there's
emergency.
no problem with the piping or
And
the
he's got relationships
electrical or
with
anything.
A&H Electric that could come out and hook up the electrical.
Yeah, there's
And
no
so
problem.
those are some small items that are not in our proposal.
That's right. But there's, and I don't think they were in yours either, were they?
Yes, they were,
Mike?
the electrical is.
They were?
No, when we drill a well and do a completion, it's 100% complete.
You have it in your proposal?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was
Again, that's
sitting
what-
here looking, I'm trying to
They
compare
don't
them.
have engineering in the
It's hard to
proposal,
do.
Right,
which we would offer that as well, but,
well, they
No
do
matter-
have engineering, but it's not in the 1.2.
Well,
right.
to do what little bit of work we think needs to be done, we're probably talking about less than $25,000, $30,000.
Total. Yeah,
That's
for
what
both-
I,
for both
in
items.
addition to
Yeah.
what he's talking about. Because the pipeline that we've got is the one that comes from number 3, and it'll go right next to us if we
Right.
need to. If it's not close enough to where we don't wanna lay another line. And the electrical is already there, it's just a matter of some more wiring. So,
Why is electrical listed twice on? Electrical on the Blisle engineering list, electrical is listed twice. One for electrical upgrades for $100,000, and then another, line 9, says new electrical services for $25,000.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I didn't prepare this specifically.
Okay.
One is, let me read them real quick. Controls for the new well, communication to the water plant, and, okay. So one is actually the water well. Again, this was prepared with assuming you're drilling a new well out in virgin territory, which is green space. In this case, that's what I said. This proposal is typical worst case common well cost. We know that some of these costs would be reduced. The 100,000 would definitely be less. That's based on conversations that we've had since this proposal was prepared, that we can reuse all the existing controls. And that's all brand new information that I didn't have, and that they didn't have when they prepared this. The electric services by the electric provider, that's common with most wells. That is your utility service provider.
So
If you have to upsize your motor for any reason, then a lot of times their standards have all changed, just like everybody else, and you can't use the old transformers. So you have to buy new. So that's the reason we included it in our proposal, until they can tell us.
Let it be said that we will not utilize Weisinger's abilities except to get started. I think that's the only thing that we're gonna utilize you for. Anything beyond that point will go to Blau. Because they are the district engineer. They will have to certify that the well is done according to Hoyle. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So neither one of these are good proposals?
Well, I believe Weisinger's,
What I'm proposing is to get it approved at the TCEQ with my engineer.
is a good proposal at 1.2, whatever.
The figure's right
I gave
there.
it to somebody.
1.2.
Is that for-
I think he, are you viewing that as a firm?
That's a firm price. The-
Yeah.
So we're gonna pay
The
1.2
Blau has
plus
some,
1.4?
No.
no. I think the Blau could probably be reduced to something like 1.3, 1.35, 1.32. But they have a lot of engineering fees that they charge for, which
Right.
is legitimate. But we will still have those charges to add to it at the end for certification of the well.
I don't want to contradict you, but I'm saying if you get approval at Lone Star and TCEQ, there is no other certification.
Well, there will be, if it's mandated,
That would be self-imposed by the district.
that's right.
And I'm not campaigning for anything at all.
And that's purely will be a judgment decision at that time.
Let me explain to y'all right quick where this concept came from, and I wanted to share it with y'all. The city of Conroe asked us, instead of them doing the engineering, could we handle this project and get it approved at Lone Star and TCEQ? They already knew we had a PE on staff because they had worked with him in other things that we did that were not big engineering projects at all. They were just strictly geared around water wells only. And we told him we could do that, and we said, if you hire us to drill the well, he's already on our payroll, we won't charge for the engineering. The engineering that we provided to the city on that well, we got the permit at Lone Star, and we got the TCEQ approval on the emergency basis. We wrote the letter to the TCEQ. We submitted all the as-belts when we got done, and sent the package to the state, and the state of Texas gave them approval, and they're pumping that well right now. And they didn't have to do anything else at all when
So
we got through.
both of these proposals are for turnkey projects.
That's what we're
That's what
proposing.
you're proposing, Mr. Sullivan, turnkey
His
projects,
is
right?
not.
Yes. That's
The
right.
This is
Blau
not
is
a
not
turnkey.
a turnkey project. It's open-ended. Blau's is not.
Lyle's is not a turnkey
No.
for this
That's the
well.
turnkey. Blau's is an estimate.
Okay,
Right, yeah, if you want to put it that way.
okay.
And believe me, and it's only an estimate basically because he doesn't have privy to what the Weissingers or the Lane Bowlers or anybody else is gonna charge to come in and move and drill a well, number one. Number two is that he doesn't know how much engineering work is gonna have to be done, so he put in
Okay.
a great deal.
Can I make a proposal that we have a committee set up of 2 people, any 2 people, to compare these when, are you gonna submit a new proposal? Or
Well,
are you
they
going to-
can't submit
No,
a turnkey.
No,
Okay,
No.
Blau will not submit a
We
turnkey.
gave you, we.
They are not a
we're-
contractor.
We're required
other
to give
than
you
an
a
engineering
proposal
firm.
for services.
So you would
select
have
us
to
based
go,
on
it would have to be, if you wanted to do a turnkey, you would have to go out on a bid process with all the parameters, and that takes 2 months?
Yeah, minimum, yeah.
Why does it take 2 months?
Because
Somebody
they have
has
to
to
get
write
the
the
advertise.
you
receipts.
have to advertise,
30 days.
it's a whole bunch of requirements.
They have to
And
notice it, they have to
build
do
your
this, that, and
package,
the other.
And then you have to physically publicize
Whereas
it.
on an emergency
For a
basis,
week.
we can take what we know. If not, then you wait.
On an emergency basis, the state has a process. It doesn't matter how you go about it, what engineer does it, but they have a process in place for a situation just like y'all have here. Conroe had one, other people have them, and it's a variance to the standard process. You submit a letter, you state your case to them, they review it, and they give you notice back. And we've written enough letters in our life, and we've seen other people written letters that you know how to draft the letter. You send it to TCQ within 48 hours, we'd have approval, and you would start moving forward with drilling the well. It eliminates all the normal requirements, and in order to hit the target in June, the clock is ticking. Y'all don't have a whole lot of time to get this. I mean, we're talking about building Rome in a short time to move in and drill a big well and get it tied into the system. And once we get it tied into the system, you have to submit a package to the state, and that package has got to get reviewed by them on the tail end to tell you, okay, you can turn it on. And there's an art to that. The engineering companies have to, or whoever's handling it, the PE, they really gotta be on their toes to get that approval on the end of it so you can get that well put online.
That's right.
Is the new well gonna be within the fence area of the old well?
Just outside of it, but within the
Not within the
perimeters.
fence, it'd be within the berm
Right.
area.
Okay.
The berm
We
is actually the
we own
property.
out to the berm,
Okay.
So we'll just.
but
do
it's gotta
fence.
be within
So
50
we'll
feet of
fence it
the,
in.
so it'll be within the fence.
We'll extend the fence out to cover it.
Right.
The fence, I don't think extends, I think it extends 50 feet out, doesn't it? In certain direction.
That would be the third thing. You've got a fence guy, if y'all choose our proposal, that would have to extend your fence around.
Yeah, I'd already take care of that.
All right, are there any other questions of either party? Then, I would submit a resolution or to approve the drilling of well number 2 as per the letter provided by Weisinger and Associates, or Weisinger Water Well Service. And I want to bring one other thing to front on Mike's letter, on Mike's notes. He's talking about a new pump was ordered. We're gonna get credit for that new pump. If we decide to use a different pump, he's gonna give us credit. We're not having to buy that pump at this time.
You have an invoice
Number
for the
two,
pump you have, right?
The
No,
12-inch
we have an
casing
invoice
that
to
they
do.
No.
bought to line the well in anticipation of us completing this job as originally forecast. He's putting it in stock and not charging us for that.
That was about
Now, I know
$70-something
there-
thousand dollars worth
I
of
failed to
materials.
say that, but anyway, the resolution has been made. Is there a second?
You need to declare an emergency too.
Pardon?
In that resolution, you need to declare it as an emergency
Yeah,
So the
well,
letter can get written at the
as
state.
per our agenda, it's emergency
There you go.
well number 2. Is there a second?
I second it.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All, understand, all 5?
Yes.
All five.
Make it unanimous. Since there's the only item in front of the board, we shall be adjourned.